Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. As people who are watching can see, Jennifer and I are actually in the same room this time. So that's awesome. We're here in the same city. Anyway, today we are joined by the lovely Roula Roulette. And let me just tell you a little bit about her, because this is there's a lot here. So Roula is the owner, creative director, producer, performer, and co-owner of Metropolitan Studios, the Atlanta School of Burlesque, and the Candybox Revue located in Atlanta, Georgia. Roula Roulette is a theatrical artist most known for her performances that embody fat vanity, sex positivity, self-love, wacky personal narratives, political think pieces, and sexual exploration. Roula has been teaching burlesque and preaching the gospel of building body confidence with the Atlanta School of Burlesque since 2013 and received her Sexify Sensual Movement Certification from Pole la Teaz in 2018 and her Liquid Motion 1.0 certification in 2022. She holds a Master of Arts in Theatrical Production, and she has taught movement in her acclaimed Titty Church internationally and throughout the Southeast at universities, festivals, conferences, and private engagements. And to that lovely bio, she's now adding talking to us on Madness Cafe.
So
welcome, Roula. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So I have, just from your bio, I have like 101 questions for our 101st episode. But why don't we start with, tell us a little bit about your story and how it led to what you're doing today.
Wow. Okay. I still work in the real world outside of, the stage. So I moved to Atlanta for a job probably almost 11 years ago now. I stepped away from living and working in the theater into sort of the corporate side of the world because health insurance, stable hours, benefits.
Yep.
I still wanted to do something creative with my time. I didn't know anyone in Atlanta when I moved here. And I had some friends. I went to school just north of Nashville, and I had some friends who were doing burlesque. And I said, hey, how do I get involved in Atlanta? And they sent me some performers, and I reached out. Like performers were not always great at answering our emails. And so I didn't really hear anything. And then about 3 months later, I was on Groupon, and I saw that at the time it was called Studio Burlesque, was like opening its doors. And it was literally the next street over from my house. So if that wasn't the universe being like, here you go, I literally don't know what else was. I could walk there, and it took me about 3 minutes. So I showed up and I started taking classes. I mean, it was at the point where I was making no money because I was like 23. I was making no money. So I was spending like all I had on dance classes, and my sister was like sending me money for groceries every week because all the spare money I had went to taking dance classes. So I'm forever grateful to my sister for feeding me during those first few months. And I was taking classes regularly. I was there as many times as I could be. About 6 months in, it transitioned from Studio Burlesque to the Atlanta School of Burlesque, which was created by Ursula Andress, who was my business partner for a long time. I came on as a teacher. It was like a Saturday, and she called me and said, hey, my fundamentals teacher isn't going to be able to show up. There's students at the school. You've taken the class. Can you just go and teach it?
Wow.
Like, yeah, totally. Like, I'll go and teach it. And then I became the new fundamentals teacher. So I was teaching like burlesque basics, right? Like bumps and grinds and walks. And what I found when I came in as a teacher was there was not a lot of conversation around how to get over the hangups in your body and with your body and like who you are.
I would need that.
Oh my God, I would need that.
I started bringing that to my classes, which has snowballed into so many other things, which I'm sure we can talk about. But that's sort of what I started teaching was fundamental movement. And let's talk about just how to get out of your head and into your body and stop being so insecure about things that are fine. Your body is fine, right? It's fine. And then we hopped studios. So we left that was on the west side. We hopped studios. We were in core dance in Decatur for a while, and it got really hard to just get regular classes, right? So they have a dance company. So like I need every Thursday for 6 weeks at 7 o'clock was really hard. And consistency is what builds classes. So
Sure.
we went to Firefly Indicator for a little while, and then we found an investor who was looking to purchase commercial property. And he said, hey, if I buy this piece of property, can you manage it? And we said yes. I don't think any of us knew what we were saying yes to. We were like, yes, let's do it. And that was in 2016. So we did about 3 years of just sort of hopping from studio to studio, having client bases sort of all over the place. And then we moved into the building we're in now in 2016. At that time, we decided it needed to be bigger than burlesque. So we dissolved the LLC and moved into an incorporation. That was Metropolitan Studios. And now we have DBAs for the Atlanta School of Burlesque and Candybox Revue. Now a few reasons, like burlesque, have you ever seen the First Wives Club?
Yes.
We were thinking too small. We can't think too small. So we had to think like, what else does burlesque, lead into? And the concept of a community space and a place for other small businesses and entrepreneurs to come and have a place where they could rent and like help their business flourish. We knew how much we needed that. And so it was like, that's sort of a built-in clientele. And also corporate companies don't want to rent a burlesque school. And if there's money anywhere, it's in corporate rentals. So we had to also take into consideration, how do we sustain ourselves, right? Just being a burlesque school was going to be too hard. So we have the studio, we have the school, we have the performance troupe, and then that's sort of where we've been. The place was awful when we got it. We've put in so much sweat equity. We're finally at a really great place where every time we have a show, I just kind of sit on stage at the end of the show and the lights are on and people are everywhere. And it's like, I have that moment where it's like, this was what I always dreamed of having, was like my own theater, my own space. And while it's very unconventional and it's, it's not a huge theater, it brings artists from all over. We have some incredible shows. It's got a really intimate, wonderful atmosphere. And I just feel really fortunate, that we are where we are and we have what we have.
Why were you drawn to burlesque? Because you picked that and went for it.
I did. I struggled to do anything half-assed. If there's anything about me, I will always over deliver. I wanted to do, so I tried like yoga and I tried all these things. And I said, I'm a lighting designer too. I still design some on the side. I just didn't want to spend 6 weeks in a theater doing someone else's vision with someone else's costumes, with someone else's direction. And I was like, burlesque lets me do it on my own time. But like now I am the one who's like, okay, we have to be in here, 6 days a week with my direction and my vision for myself, for the things that I create. And so I went into it thinking like, I can do this on my own, like my own timeline, and my own timeline became what I didn't want to do for someone else, but I got to do it for me. So we, it's like a little place for us to be our own director, designer, choreographer. We get to create our own art. And that's what I really love about it.
Awesome.
That's real cool.
Well, as somebody who has been in the space, because I've been twice.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a burlesque show like many, many, many years ago at a totally different location, which I don't know is connected with you all, but at y'all's studio, I went once to see a show where y'all had another troupe joining you from, I believe it was San Francisco.
Oh, Seattle. You came
yes,
the weekend with What the Funk.
Yes. And that was amazing. It was
incredible. Yeah.
And a good friend of mine has been taking classes with you all, and she had her recital. Yeah. And so I went back for that.
Oh, cool.
And that was fantastic as well. So, I mean, both experiences were so great. And it's such a really great space to see burlesque. So for anybody who's in Atlanta, please go see it, because it's awesome. You guys do such a fantastic job and the performers are great. But before we get further into it, just for people who don't know, what specifically is burlesque? Like, how is burlesque different from, I don't know, just dancing? What makes burlesque so special?
Mm-hmm. So burlesque is really sort of a fringe art form. If you think about contemporary, modern, most dance forms are really mainstream. There is a sexual element to burlesque, there can be, but what I like to tell my students is that burlesque is the art of the tease, not the art of the dance, not the art of the character. Burlesque is the art of the tease. And it's about the idea of having the the audience come on a journey with you, and you're sort of just like tantalizing, and then maybe they get a little bit of something at the end, and then, you know, maybe they don't. But you don't have to be a dancer. You don't have to be an actor. For those who come to burlesque from dance, they infuse their persona and their acts with that. From those who come with theater, maybe it's a more character driven or gimmicky sort of act. The beauty of burlesque is it's a wide variety, and it sort of is like a melting pot of all these different art forms. We have singers that come in and they learn to strip when they sing. We have, you know, aerialists that come in and they're stripping while they're in the air. And we have, you know, you might have someone juggling and like taking clothes off while they're doing that. And you don't even have to take your clothes off, you know, like you saw at our student recital. You know, sometimes it's cabaret performances. Burlesque is really just a wide net that captures a wide variety of fringe art forms that are focused on entertainment, that sort of tantalizing aspect, and taking the audience on a journey with you. And then sometimes we take our clothes off, you know. So there is a little bit more of an, you know, you can take your kids to a dance, you know, a dance show. Burlesque, you know, you really should be 18 because you don't know what you're going to see.
Yeah. Well, you guys do such a great job. I mean, literally both times that I went, I enjoyed every single performer, and every performer was different and had like their own personality and their own, I don't know, their own vision for that particular performance come through. And it's really cool how it's almost like you make it your own, or at least that's what I got from seeing the different performers and things like that. So it's very, very cool.
I've never seen, and now I want to.
Yeah, you should. I think you came to two very different events. So a weekend with What the Funk was a partnership with Puckduction out of Seattle. They run What the Funk, it's a all BIPOC funk festival. And they run that in Seattle every year. And they bring in some of the top tier performers across the country. So we brought in 9 performers that are a part of that event. And they're all big names, you know, have performed at the Burlesque Hall of Fame or are doing amazing things at their own right in Seattle and the Pacific Northwest. So you had like these top tier, highly professional performers. And then you come to a recital for our students, which is completely opposite, because a lot of them are brand new. We have our instructors perform sometimes, but a lot of them are brand new. But what I love about recital energy is that everyone is there to just see their friend or their loved one just like be so badass. So the energy in the room is just so like in fancier shows, right? It feels like everyone's just like in awe. And so there's like this just like reverence. And I think in recitals, it was just like this, like, you're so amazing energy. It's really awesome for newbies on stage to really be assaulted with that kind of energy because they really need it. So I love that you came to 2 totally different events there and that you had a great time at both. That's awesome.
They were fantastic.
Do your students always do a recital, or is that like an optional thing?
It's optional. So students are not required to perform. I have some students who only ever want to do student recitals. They don't want to move on to become like a solo performer. And then we have some students who are like, I just want to come and dance. I don't want to be at the end of your recital. And like, that's cool. But we have one at the end of every semester. So we have usually 2 at the spring and winter, but we're also introducing one for summer right now because our summer classes have actually started. Everything has kind of exploded, which has been amazing.
I love that. I'm so glad.
So now I'm having to add a recital, which is great.
Yeah, that's really cool. A couple words really stuck out to me in your bio, and they are fat vanity. What does that mean?
We live in a world that says that plus size bodies or larger bodies are not attractive. And so many individuals that inhabit plus size bodies spend a lot of their time trying to figure out, how do I be thinner? How do I look different? How do I? And it's really the concept of like, I'm enamored of my body. I love my body, right? Like it changes, it's different, it fluctuates, and it's amazing. But at no point is there a place within this body that I'm like, I want that to be smaller. Right. And anytime I do a workout regimen or something, it's literally like, I just want to be stronger. I don't need to be thinner. So it's this idea that like, I find joy and sensuality and sexuality and beauty in just the body that I inhabit currently. And that body happens to be a fat body. So there is a lot of vanity around like, I think it looks amazing and I want to dress to how it looks amazing and I want to show it off to the world. Most of the photos I take, I'm naked. I told my employer when I first interviewed there, I was like, I own a burlesque studio. I do burlesque. If you look hard enough, there's naked pictures of me on the internet. And
Well, we've seen some of them in doing their research for the show, and they're beautiful.
Thank you.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, but it's the concept of just sort of like going against the mainstream idea of what I'm supposed to think of my body as a larger human being.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you get that from burlesque, or did you already have that before you started burlesque?
That's a great question. I grew up in a home that was very fat phobic. And women's value, or femme presenting humans, their value was found in how conventionally attractive their body was. Not their brain, not what they were able to do, but just what they looked like.
Yeah.
And I think I was probably 19 when I realized I was in this terrible relationship with someone that was considerably older than me, but it taught me something that was really valuable. And it taught me that people find my body attractive. My body is attractive, not to everyone, but not everyone is attractive to me. Exactly. And so in that moment, I realized there's a lot of power in that, and just owning that, that this flesh suit that I'm in is attractive, regardless of the size. It took me a while to really delve as deep. I used to preach a lot of body positivity, and I actually don't do that anymore. I talk a lot more about body neutrality, especially as I start working more with our trans community and our queer community. And, you know, it's really shitty to have someone say like, love your body when you're in the middle of a transition, right? And so I really had to reframe for myself. It's not necessarily about loving your body. It's about getting to a place where you're not disassociating from it. You're recognizing that this is the body I have in this moment. I can make changes for it if I need to. I can shift it as I need to, but I don't do it because I hate it. I do it because it's a journey that I'm on.
Yeah.
And so it's less about like, love your body all the time, positive vibe. Like, I'm not a big positive vibes only kind of person. It's we're humans with the full range of emotions, and we should experience that.
Yes, we are.
And part of that is sort of coming to terms with the things that you've been taught to feel about your body. And I tell my students a lot, I call it, I don't know if there's someone else out there doing something, but I call it my second thought theory. And the first thing that you think when you look at your body or someone else, the snap judgment that you make is something that you were taught. The second thought you have is what you truly believe. And that's you have to get to the point where you can recognize a first thought and question yourself and ask, is that truly my belief? Do I truly believe that about myself, about this human being? And if you can start having those conversations with yourself, you can start shifting how you see your body and how you see other human beings too, right?
Yeah.
That is really powerful. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I'm going to give that a lot.
Yeah, think about it.
Yeah, seriously, that hits hard for me. So I'm glad you brought that up. I like that.
I've been doing something kind of like that about just the body neutrality, telling I accept myself. I accept myself. And that statement has been so powerful for me, because my first thought is often something that you describe, and then I'm like, no, I accept myself. Yeah,
you have to get past the first thought. And it's like, I accept myself as I am right now.
Right.
Right. And I tell my students before they go on stage, right, if you go, your audience deserves 100% of you. And if you go on stage with 15% of your brain back here thinking about how your thighs look, your audience is only getting 85%.
Yeah.
And they deserve all of that. And most of the time our audiences, they want to see it. I tell them if it jiggles, throw a tassel on it and get on stage, right? Like that's my theory around it. Right? That's my theory around it. But you have to start having those conversations with yourself and ask yourself, in the next 4 minutes before I go on stage, is my body going to look any different?
Nope.
Can I do anything in the next 4 minutes to change my body?
No.
So I'm going to stop worrying about it. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to release it. And I'm just going to go give the audience everything I have and enjoy that experience. And I find that the more that you stop getting onto yourself and like tearing yourself down for how your body looks, the more you can start to appreciate it for what it is and what it can do, and the joy and experience that it brings to your life.
Yeah.
Wow. I think I need to, and I've said this so many times since I first saw a performance at your studio, but I think I may have to look into taking classes.
Yes.
For
Come with
a
me.
whole host of reasons. I think this is something I need.
I think you'd enjoy
I
it.
think I need to do this for
I
myself.
love that.
Why is the exploration of sex important in burlesque or otherwise, or in life in general, I guess?
I think it's important to say that the exploration of sex or lack thereof is important in burlesque. I think a lot of performers come into burlesque thinking they have to be hypersexual, but it's also important to remember that there are performers out there that are asexual. And so they're telling you about their experience that's not from a sexual lens, right? So that's why there's so much of burlesque, whether it's the exploration of sex or not, that's really valuable and interesting to an audience. And I think the concept of, for me as a femme presenting human being, the concept of reveling in sexuality and reveling in my sensuality and reveling in the joy of what it means to be a sexual being, having this experience, is that we're taught a lot of shame around sex. And sex is one of the more natural things that we do in the world. It's how we reproduce as human beings. And so the shame that's put on us for the desire, especially femme presenting human beings, just the desire for sex. And we're often seen in society as sexual objects for someone else's pleasure and not for our own pleasure. And for me, when it's performances that are really around sensuality and sexuality, this is about what pleases me. And you get a front row seat to that. And I'm going to show you how I want to be touched. And I'm going to show you what feels good. And you get to worship me with your eyes and your applause and your money and your cheers. And this is about my gratification.
Wow.
And you.
I can't snap loud enough, but yeah.
So for me, right, that's what that is, and there's other performers who it's less about sex for them. And I think that is also completely valid, because there are humans in our audiences that sometimes overtly sexual things can make them uncomfortable.
Right.
So it's nice to have a good mix.
So if that's not the focus or topic for them, what are some of the other focuses and topics?
It can be the concept. So there's a performer, she doesn't do as much anymore, but her name was Titty Church, and she was a tap dancing performer. And she had one of the most incredible stripteases that had nothing to do with sex. She was a tap dancing waitress that was doing the pepper grinder, and she kept sneezing her clothes off.
It's funny.
I love that.
Yeah.
Right. But that's just like literally the removal was the gimmick. Right. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm sexy and I'm taking my clothes off. It was just like, I put too much pepper on your stuff and I just, blew my apron off. Right. So you can still, I think, and it's so funny, like we live in a society that says that our bodies are inherently sexual, but they're not. Before my body is for my own sexual gratification or someone else's gratification, it is simply my body and it's what I live in. And so the idea that the only thing that nudity brings is sexuality is a strange conundrum, right? Because a mother breastfeeding is not sexual, but there's nudity involved.
Right.
So we can explore the concept of nudity with sexuality, without sexuality, with sensuality, without it. And I think that that's important for audiences to see, because it also normalizes the naked body as not just an object of sexual desire.
We need more of that.
Yeah. Having said all that, do you see burlesque as having, at least the way that it's taught and utilized at your school, do you see burlesque as having sort of an activist stance?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So I think that a naked body on stage is inherently political, especially if it's a body that goes against a societal norm and expectation. I like to think of burlesque as theater, because really that's where our roots are. And when you look at the theatrical world, you have a wide variety of things. You have like your really overtly fluffy sort of Broadway musicals that are just fluff and tough and they have a lot of fun. And then you go to the back alleys of Chicago and you have these super progressive, gritty, in your face sort of performances being created. And that is also burlesque. We have the fluff and the tough and the parade and peel, and I'm just here for you to look at me and I'm going to be cute. And then we have the pieces that are really supposed to make you think and might make you slightly uncomfortable and make you question your assumptions about the world. And burlesque, I think, can run the entire gamut of that. So there are things that can be inherently political every single time, and there's things that's like, we're here to have fun.
Right. kind of sticking to the political side of it just for a second. There's so much bullshit going on against drag queens and drag shows and all that shit. Is any of it, and God, I hope it's not, but is any of that spilling over to burlesque?
I think there's the potential. I think
Okay.
there's the potential. I mean, drag already occupies some spaces that burlesque struggles to occupy. I do family-friendly shows, but some people, when they hear burlesque, they don't think family-friendly. So, you know, that's where sort of drag has always fit into that niche, or there's the capability for it to be family-friendly. But at the end of the day, everything that's happening against the drag community, there's always the potential for it to spill into the burlesque community because we are so closely in line, right? We perform in the same venues, drag queens, you know, and drag kings, you know, invite burlesque into their spaces. We invite drag into our spaces. We are essentially, you know, all gig working entertainment in that economy. And if the world has taught us nothing, is that if they'll oppress one, they'll oppress another.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So I think there is definitely the possibility. I think that we haven't seen as much of it. I mean, burlesque is censored in a lot of ways. There are still places where blue laws are on the books, which means that certain parts of our body cannot be seen. And most of that has to do with alcohol laws. So in Tennessee, specifically, where a lot of things have happened, burlesque performers can't show their underboob, which is anything beneath the areola that has to be covered. I know, it's wild. And then also like
bikinis that show under boob, for God's sake.
Yeah. And then also the vortex of the butt. So if you were to put your hands over the crack, essentially everything that covers this has to be covered. So there are places where, you know, and there are some places in Georgia that still have blue laws. So there are definitely places that have censored our performance, like in Nashville and Knoxville. I did a festival there, and they literally have like a blue law coordinator, and she's like, okay, I'm going to check your tops, I'm going to check your bottoms. And then if you had any overtly sexual things, like you couldn't like grab your ass or grab your boobs, you had to use like the side of your hand.
Oh my God.
Interesting. So there's always been some level of censorship within burlesque. Like back in the day, what we did could get you put in jail. You know, thrusting at an audience would you get put in jail. It's just as easy for this world and this country to go backwards as it is forwards, as we've seen.
As we've seen.
So I think they're the target right now, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be the only one. Yeah, unfortunately,
highly
even for them, right? It sucks. Like I want someone who is, you know, in amazing makeup and hair and bright colored dresses and happy to be there reading the children of the future in a library. Like who else is going to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
No one else is out doing that. No one else is out bringing joy to the lives of children. Like, and that's all they're trying to do. So the concept that there's any sort of backlash against that is just really homophobic.
Yeah.
And small-minded.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Ugh.
On this topic, on your website and your information, it strongly appears that inclusivity and diversity are important to you, important to your studio, important to your work. Can you talk more about why? Absolutely.
It's the same thing that I think children might experience seeing that in a library. I can do that too. There is space for me too. And I think we all grow up in different places. We all have different experiences. We can't control how we were raised, who we were raised by, or where we were raised. And so there are literally some people who come into the performance world and do not understand the problem with an all white, all thin cast because it's just so ingrained as normal to them. But they're also white and thin.
Yeah.
And what is important is about showing representation on stage. And that's what I love about our troupe Candybox Revue. The name came from opening like a box of chocolates and how there's like 17,000 different ones in there and none of them are the same.
Love
and
about
something for everyone. That was kind of the impetus for it. Was like our goal is to create a space where as an audience you're going to see yourself in someone, you're going to see something that you like. The concept of representation is so important because so much of what we see and we consume is from a white patriarchal lens. And it's our responsibility as artists to shift that narrative and to uplift marginalized voices and to provide a place for them to tell their stories, because we're very much steeped in, you know, European culture, and that is not the history and the ancestry of so many people who are in this country. and they deserve to see their stories told on stage too. Just because, our systems are run by white folks and the white patriarchy doesn't mean that that's the only thing that's worth seeing. And change, I think, really truly belongs and begins, at the community level. We start seeing change between one another on the small stages, then we start seeing change on the larger stages, because the more they see themselves represented, the more they say, I can do that. And then the more they see themselves represented, I can do that. And then we elevate one another. And that's why it's so important for us that we're representing as many different types of human beings on stage as we can, because there isn't just one perspective that's right.
Yeah. Wow. I could not have said that better myself.
Very well said.
Can you give an example of maybe a student who's come to classes there and just sort of had this transformation that you basically just saw them just come into themselves or just flourish just by virtue of being at the studio and taking classes?
Yeah, actually, she just wrote a book about it.
Oh.
Her stage name is Bonnie Bodacious. And I remember when Bonnie came into the studio, she was a lawyer and was, brown hair, very quiet, very in and of herself. And now you see Bonnie and she's got like a red mohawk and is like unapologetic. Her boobs are out. She's feeling herself and having an amazing time. I've seen such a transformation in who she is as a human being in the last 6 or 7 years that she's been coming to see us. And, and so much that she just wrote a book about sort of her journey from like the courtroom to the stage and like what that was for her.
What's your book called?
It hasn't been, I think it's on its final draft. I do have a copy of she's like, hey, can you read this? So I'll send it over to you after the interview if you want to include it. But I've definitely seen just massive shifts in who she is as a human being in the time that she's come to dance with us. It's been extraordinary. And I'm so excited to see where she goes. She's doing amazing things, but just to see someone who was quiet and within themselves and not very like boisterous and outgoing and just like shooting glitter all over everyone to now seeing that's who she is and to see her live that authentic life is just really incredible.
Yeah.
Oh God, I love that.
Yeah.
So this is more of a personal question. Was it your birthday yesterday?
It was. I turned 36 yesterday.
I thought so. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
How was the celebration?
It was good. I am, if not predictable. I've bowled every year for the last 10 years for my birthday, with the exception of the pandemic. I love bowling. I'm terrible at it. But it's like, for me, it's like a low key way for people to come and celebrate. It's relatively cheap. You don't have to drink, you don't have to eat. You can literally just come and hang out. So it makes it really equitable for everybody to just come and be a part of it. And so, yeah, we just went bowling and had pizza. It was like a 12-year-old's birthday party and it was awesome.
I love that.
Yep.
Oh, what a great day.
Yeah, it was good
Way
stuff.
to celebrate. Love it. That.
I also read on your site that you were raised in a very conservative Christian family. How has that molded? It's like hard to believe. How did you get here?
Yeah, wow. So I think a lot of artists actually suffer from some level of religious trauma. I'm going to be real, because especially Southern Christianity, it's just like force fed down our throats.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
There's this concept of like servility and docileness that's prized in women. I think my father tried very hard, but we also moved a lot growing up. So I went to 15 schools between kindergarten and ninth grade in 3 different states between Tennessee, Wyoming, and Southern California, all very, very different experiences. I didn't grow up with a television because we were very poor. So I read a lot of books and I like sort of just lived in fantasy. And my father was relatively detached from what I was doing as long as, there was church. And that was my grandma.
As long as you were quiet.
Yeah. If children were seen and not heard, women were seen and not heard, you didn't buck the authority of the patriarch in the family. My father's very homophobic, very racist in a lot of ways. And I don't really have a relationship with him anymore because
Sorry.
No, I was sorry for a while, but that's really his loss. Because
Hey, I'm sorry for him that
Yeah.
he doesn't get to be
I'm
with
sorry
you.
for him too. I'm an incredible human being, and
Yes, you are.
he just can't see past his own shit. Parents perpetuate their trauma on their children.
Yeah.
And I saw very quickly, especially, he raised 2 daughters, and he always said, I want you to be strong women. I want you to be able to take care of yourself, which is so counterintuitive to like everything else. And I think what he didn't realize when he was like, take no shit, was that there was going to come a day when I looked at him and took no shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
And that day came, and it shocked him, I think, where I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not fighting with you. You can figure out your own shit, and I'm going to go live my life because you don't feed me, you don't fuck me, and you don't finance me. So I'm
There
out.
you go.
Yep.
I'm out.
It's such an interesting thing because I've been raising 2 girls all these years. My oldest just turned 23, and in all of my dating, etc., relationships, people were like, your kids argue with you. They debate things. And I'm like, you want daughters who can say no. Who do you think they're going to practice that with? They're
You
going to
need critical
practice that.
thinkers.
They're going to practice that with me. They need to push back to me.
And sometimes we're wrong.
Exactly. Oh, my girls have taught me so much.
Yeah.
So much. They actually made me question my policing of their clothing as they were going to school as kids.
Because you're policing it from a man's perspective, and what is a man going to see?
And they were like,
right? As opposed to policing the men in our lives who shouldn't be sexualizing your daughters.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now they go to school, they wear what they want. But it took a while. I didn't get it because it was so ingrained.
Yep.
And they taught me that. They will teach so much.
Yeah, we let men get away with things because we try to make it our daughter's fault.
I know.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
I don't have any children, but I do have 2 nieces. One is 18, one is 11, and 2 nephews. One is 19, and one is like 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and your nephews need to learn too that there's things they should not be doing.
Yeah,
right?
there was a time with my nephew, my oldest nephew, where I was like, bro, this kind of shit's not welcome. And if you can't get it together, you're not welcome here.
Yep.
And he got his shit together a little bit and was like, Mom, is Aunt, back mad at me? And she's like, no, honey, she's just really disappointed in some of your choices.
Disappointed in your choices. Yeah.
And it's like, I love you, but like, this is a fuck up, bro.
Yeah. I love you, but I love you too much to let you stay that way.
Yeah. I also didn't ask if I could curse, and it's just sort of my life.
Of course you can.
Yes.
It is me being authentic.
Yes. Fuck yes, you can cuss and it's fine.
I don't even think about it. It just comes out, and I'm like, oh.
The other thing my kids have taught me, they're just words, Mom.
Yeah, language is just expression.
They're just words.
Yeah.
How else are we supposed to say we feel strongly about that?
Yes. Right? Yes.
Exactly. If I were listening to this and just hearing about burlesque for the first time, I would want to know, what can I do to help support burlesque? So somebody listening.
That's a good question.
Yeah. So like somebody in Atlanta, I'm sure there's specific things that people in Atlanta can do, but say somebody in Michigan or somebody in Colorado, if they're hearing this and they're thinking, wow, what can I do to help support burlesque? What can they do?
Sure. If you are not the kind of person who takes classes, you can donate to shows. Almost every show is going to have a donation concept, whether it's like a donation ticket. You can buy tickets for local communities, underserved communities. So you can buy tickets that are like, hey, if you have some BIPOC people who want to come but can't afford a ticket, I'm going to buy 2 tickets for them. If you have, queer individuals who want to come to the show and can't afford it, here's 2 tickets for them. So you can buy like ghost tickets. You can donate to projects and shows. They might have a donation in the ticket link. If you go to our website, on the front page, we have a fiscal sponsor. So anything that's donated to us is tax deductible because we do work with a 501c3 fiscal sponsor called Fractured Atlas. And then if you want to take classes, but you don't have anything nearby, so many instructors offer online options. So there are classes that you can take online and you're part of what's happening. So you're taking it online with students that are in class. Like I teach a Wednesday class that's online and I have a Sunday class that's online in addition to what I'm doing in the classroom. And really teaching at a hybrid level has become something that's sort of second nature because I did it so much during the pandemic.
That sounds really cool. And then you can start maybe in the comfort of your own home.
With your camera off, unless we're
Until
teaching
you're
you tricks
ready.
that'll hurt you.
Yeah,
Unless we're
until
teaching
you're
you a
ready.
trick that's gonna hurt you. I'm like, you can turn your camera off. I don't need to see it. Let me see it. But if I'm like, hey, we're doing this trick and I want to make sure you don't hurt yourself, can I see your form? Right.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna put you on blast in front of the class, right? It's just gonna be me and you in this little box.
I might have to try it. I know I've said this so many times over the last, like, I don't know, like 8 months. It's coming. It's coming. But it's gonna take me a little while to not be chicken shit. So
I feel that.
Me too.
yeah, it's coming. It's coming for sure.
Well, just know that when you do come to class, we're here to see you succeed.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
the goal.
And I totally felt that, like, being at that recital. Oh my God, so supportive.
Yeah.
I mean, just for everybody that was there.
That's cool.
Everyone was supportive of, I mean, yeah, people are there to see their friends, but it's not like people only cheered for their friends.
Right.
Like, it was this full-on supportive, just vibrant.
Raquel, I will come to your recital.
Oh my God.
I will be there.
Our next one is June 2nd and June 3rd. Please come out and join us. It's going to be a blast.
Awesome. I will have to do that.
Was there anything that you wanted to specifically tell our audience that you didn't get a chance to?
That if you don't support small artists and small businesses, they go away.
Yeah, that's so true.
And so if you're like, I'll support it tomorrow, or I'll go next week, or I'll go next time, your attendance at this one might dictate whether or not there is a next time.
Yeah.
Wow. That's significant.
It is. Yeah.
It
Some
is.
producers are like, I tried and it's cost me too much money. I didn't have the ticket sales. I can't do it again. And then suddenly something that you wanted to see in the future is gone because they need the support right now, not in the future. And that support isn't always monetary, right? Tell your friends, share the event, share what's going on. And then also just the importance and the need for education, thoughtful critique, and the work to build up one another as artists is so important. And so your attendance to those things too are important, right? The things where we're like giving feedback to one another, or even having places where we can give feedback to one another and create. So much of what we create is in a vacuum. And, we might have, hey, I'm going to showcase this thing that I'm working on. It's not complete, but I just want feedback from an audience. Even coming to those sort of in the process artistic things is so important to the work that we're creating as artists. We need that feedback. We need to know what an audience finds entertaining. And if you get the story we're trying to tell. So just supporting in whatever way you can by showing up or word of mouth or donating. Not everybody can be, I think it's the concept of like, everyone's like, oh, you should go be a doctor, when you get out of high school. Not everyone can be a doctor.
Yeah.
Right.
Everyone can be a doctor. There are so many other things that we need to keep our world moving. So not every performer wants to do Broadway. Not every performer wants to be on that type of grueling schedule. Some performers, we don't want to, but we want to be able to make this sustainable. But that doesn't mean that we have to be at the Fox to make it sustainable. But we need audiences to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and not everybody can go see a show at the Fox.
Right.
And this, in so many ways, is so much more accessible for people than necessarily going to the Fox or to, whatever big venue in.
Right. Dita Von Teese is not the only burlesque performer out there.
Exactly. So, so we need to support all of you because you all bring something amazing to the table and you all bring this just amazing creativity, and you create space for people to fully come into themselves, which I think is so joyous to see. So I love what you're doing. I just have to say that I love what you're doing.
Thank
you.
Keep
doing it. So people support burlesque.
Yes.
So, this can continue. It's amazing.
And it was a great conversation.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed talking to you today.
I'm so glad. I enjoyed talking to you both too. Thank you again so much for having me. It's truly been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye, Roula.
And now let's wrap up the show.
There's so many things I love about this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
First, the whole idea of art as activism.
Yes.
and not just activism with a capital A, but activism with a small a, like personal at, an individual level, on, one-on-one. And then it just reaches out, it creates community and it touches more people. And like she was saying, tell your friends. If you can't go, tell your friends so your friends can go. The more people who see it, the more people who are touched by it. And the whole idea of the second thought,
that was like
topic. Yeah.
That was like, yes.
Yeah. That hit me so hard. Like that is something I'm going to have to just keep that literally in the forefront of my brain.
Say it out loud. How does it work?
Like, for instance, when we were setting up today, my first thought,
real world example.
Yes, people. First thought, we're setting up, and I'm like, oh God. I was like, God, my boobs look so big, and I'm like, raise the thing so
we had to move the camera around.
So and instead of just embracing them,
and I love them.
then I'm like, so I should realize that first thought is conditioning that, I'm too big and I take up too much space.
Yeah.
Whereas my second thought should be, I should celebrate my boobs and I'm more than just my boobs.
Yeah. But you keep saying that word should.
Yes.
This is a process. We
Yes.
have been conditioned for what? We're 54 years.
Yeah.
It's not going to flip in 10 seconds.
No, it's not. It's not. So it's a process. I'm working on it, people. I'm working on it. And the second thought idea that Roula just gave us is going to go so far in helping me to
it's brilliant.
Unlearn all of that. So that's awesome.
It's brilliant. I think the thing that really stuck out for me is how much work I personally need to do. Not on that, because I think I've come to a more comfortable space on that, but with my uncomfortability with sexuality.
Yeah.
I didn't even know if I would go watch burlesque because
it's so great.
I know I need to go.
Yeah.
But I have this, and again, we know it's conditioning.
It is.
We know it's conditioning.
Because we think, ooh, burlesque. Oh, it's bad. It's body. Oh, no, it's going to be sexualized. Oh, God, people are going to be naked. No. And we get in our heads about it because that's how we've been conditioned.
I know.
But then I swear to you, you go to a show and it's amazing and you see people having a great time and it's just so awe-inspiring on every level that you can think of, and people are supportive and it's just so great. So
I want to be unabashedly unashamed of every part of how I want to express myself.
Same.
Yes.
That is a great way to put it. And I could not agree more. That is definitely something to work toward.
Just be like, earlier today when my daughter and I were joking around with you and I said, I'm much more of a slut. Okay, that's, again, my daughter teaching me something.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable saying that now, whereas before I'd have been like, oh, I don't want anybody to think I'm a slut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what are we supposed to be covered from head to toe and hidden in our houses?
You're supposed to be a nun, didn't you know?
Right.
Just kidding. But that's the conditioning.
Right.
That's the conditioning that we are starting to unlearn.
Yeah.
And I think because of all the amazing people that we've talked to, Roula being one of them.
These young women have it going on.
How did they
get it so early?
Lucky. They did the work.
They did the work.
They did the work.
Luck.
Yeah.
Not luck. All the reading.
Yeah. The reading, doing the work, being in the spaces that support that. Yeah. I mean, all of it.
But you know what? As much as I'm there's this tiny bit that's jealous that I'm I wish I knew that when I was their age. But then there's this other part that's yes, for them. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
I literally could not be prouder.
Yeah.
It's not like we can't celebrate
we're dead.
Yeah, we're not dead. I mean, there's still plenty of time for us to be sensual and open and fully actualized human beings. We are not dead. So there you go.
We're not dead.
We're not dead yet, people. Boom. Bye, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.